And she's just exhibited some decision making and a level of understanding that you just can't question that to go over here and mess with the woman who Tommy has already pointed out has the power to throw everybody in jail. So it's really, everything is set to blow up as we move forward. But to finish it off, Tasha tells Ghost has a car crash and and gets locked up because they think it's because he was driving under the influence. Greg has done so. He's flagged Ghost in the system. So when he has this altercation with the police and goes to the precinct, the FBI is alerted. Angie actually wants to go down there and see what's going on, see how she can help her man because she loves him. So she shows up. And Tasha shows up too. So Tasha sees, this is, I think, the first time that they've encountered each other. So since everything is out in the open. So Tasha and Ghost get down the road after Ghost is released. And she pulls over, and her and Ghost have probably one of the better scenes in the series, of this year in terms of their marriage. And she questions Ghost about his the degree of his admiration or, his feelings for Angie. And, she says, I can look at Angie and see that she loves you. You love her. So how does she solve it? She says, you're going to sleep with him. You're going to continue to sleep with her. And we're going to use this as a means to extend our business here until we can figure out our next move. So that's right. Tasha has endorsed the relationship between Ghost and Angie. So to close out the episode, Ghost finally gets Angie alone in the apartment. He kind of questions her, probes her to see where she is in her investigation, how close she is to locking up Tommy, even though the scope of the investigation has now likely changed. And he's trying to seduce her so that it sets up whatever we're going to go through for the next 3 or 4 weeks. So that's basically where we are right now. Take another quick break. Then I'm going to jump into some quick ones on Ballers and True Detective. Real quick. Matter of fact, we're going to skip the break. Ballers. Anybody checking out Ballers? If so, holler at me. At E_pluribus_wood. The show's actually is being touted as the NFL version of Entourage. Of course, it's the familiar team of Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg, who did their work together on Lone Survivor. I don't know if you saw that. Berg was actually the boxer in the Great White Hope. I don't know if you remember back that far. And that's the producer team behind Ballers, which is Dwayne Johnson's new show on HBO. It's doing pretty well. I can't complain again. It has 8 episodes planned for season 1. It's holding at 80% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. This is very similar to First and 10, HBO's football show back in the mid 80s, early 90s. Some of the same stories. Me and Dab actually have a discussion coming up on Ballers versus First and 10 and possibly, what was the other team or the other show we were going to discuss? Playmakers, ESPN's Playmakers. But really quickly, it's been a lot of pro cameos. Woodley, Victor Cruz, Lamar Woodley, formerly of the Steelers. I believe he's in Oakland now. It's addressing head trauma because The Rock is retired and now he's into basically being a sports agent, financial advisor type guy, but handling everything from a player's perspective. We can get into the storylines later. I'm getting ready to wrap this whole show up. some impressive performances. The Rock isn't using his body and his physical, his physique, as my older brother would say. He's doing more, using some different aspects of his acting besides just his physicality and his physique and being overpowering. He's coming across as a problem solver and a great communicator to move these football players around as he's trying to make a living after football. One thing that just jumped out to me, I was really digging where, one of the main characters is Ricky Jarrett, a wide receiver who was cut after some off the field issue and was able to get picked up with the Miami Dolphins. But Ricky Jarrett is actually John David Washington, who is actually the son of Denzel Washington. I had no idea. I mean, I looked at the first 2 or 3 episodes and I was like, man, I really like this guy. He's just charismatic. The role seems so natural. Man, this dude, and I thought I saw him in some old BET movie or something. He looked familiar. But when I actually went and checked it out on IMDb, I find out that I put 2 and 2 together and learned that that's Denzel's son. And the reason he's so authentic as a football player is the fact that he played college football. And also in 2006, he had a brief contract or tryout with the St. Louis Rams. And then it all came to me because I remember seeing Denzel on either First Take or something when he had this opportunity. And it all came back to me that, he was John David. This is one and the same. So, salute to Denzel and John David Washington. He really looks like, the sky's the limit for him. I mean, this could really propel him into some other franchises or, onto the big screen in the future. Another impressive performance is Troy Garrity, as you might know as Isaac, I believe in Ice Cube's Barbershop. He doesn't even really look like himself. It took me a minute to pick up on who he was. But, he had the character on Barbershop. I didn't know if that was that Isaac's acting was like, I didn't know if that was Isaac, the character, or if that was just kind of how Troy Garrity, the actor, actually talked. It seemed like he couldn't get his words out or whatnot, or I don't know, it was something weird about him in both of the Barbershop movies. The third sequel is coming to that one, if you don't know. But Garrity is playing the actual sports agent, I guess, of the 3, with The Rock being like the player, and then there's an accounting guy. An accountant, I should say. I can't remember his name right now on the show or the actor, but he's doing a pretty good job too. But Troy Garrity is one to keep an eye on. And then also Omar Benson Miller is playing another retired offensive tackle on there. I believe his name is Charles Green. And they're showing a different side of life where The Rock is around a lot of money and the opportunity to make a lot of money and have more of a sexy career path. Charles Green is a married man. I don't think they have any kids yet, but he retired from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the show, and he's actually become a car salesman. So we're getting to look at the life of a guy who, doesn't have the ESPN analyst job or head, he's not on a coaching staff. It's a guy that's just kind of going to find his way in life doing something totally new. So he's a car salesman at a local dealership. So that's Ballers. Let me know what you think about it. You in, you out, let me know. Again, at E_pluribus_wood. Lastly, I'm going to close out with this one real quickly. True Detective. This year, it's a mess. I mean, the lives of Taylor Kitsch, Rachel McAdams is doing a fantastic job. You can see her this Friday in the movie with 50 Cent, Jake Gyllenhaal, Southpaw, and Forrest Whitaker. But this role that Rachel McAdams has in this season's True Detective has really shined a light on her. I'm really becoming a fan of her as a bad girl. I did not think she could do it. But her life, and there's also Velcoro as a detective. That's Colin Farrell. His life is a mess. And then lastly is Vince Vaughn as some type of crime boss. It's been very hard to determine what exactly he does to get where he was. But I would just say this. For a crime boss, the writers on this show are doing an excellent job, as they did in season 1. But the dialogue of Vince Vaughn is way over the top for a crime boss or a boss or, the head of a crime organization. I mean, his rhetoric and philosophy and his whole demeanor is just, it's Hollywood. But interestingly enough, every week, it looks like on Rotten Tomatoes, episode 1 was at 76%, episode 2 peaked at 86%. And then we get into weeks 3 or episodes 3, 4, and 5, and we've dipped down to the 50%. And, there's a lot of expectations for this show following up on the heels of last year's smash featuring Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. I just took a moment this week to catch up on all 8 of those episodes, and it was great television. I loved it. I was thinking this season was a little bit better, but I'll just say it like this. I know why a lot of people who are day ones, I understand why they rock with season 1 way more, because they had the anticipation for week to week to see how that investigation was going to unfold. When I just sat there and watched it in succession, with a binge and some binge watching, and I didn't have that same level of anticipation having to wait every week. So I get that. But the story of the 4 principal actors that I just mentioned, the 4 principal roles, Kitch, McAdams, Vaughn, and Farrell, I was just so intrigued with this. And then if you saw episode 4, the last 10 minutes with this huge shootout in downtown, they're in Vinci, which I've never heard of as a city in California. But if you saw that, it really put the show in a whole new direction as the investigation has kind of unwound. But following that shootout, I was all in. And then we come into this week, and I think they changed the intro music to the show was different. And I guess in the opening scene, they let you know that it's 4 to 6 months later after the big shootout, where several innocent bystanders were shot, several policemen were killed, detectives were killed, special agents were killed. This was one of the biggest shootouts that I've seen on a TV series. It's almost to the level of maybe the final act of Heat when that robbery went bad, or maybe even The Town. This thing was huge. And so this week it kind of all reset, and where we thought the investigation had concluded, and we found out who killed this victim that the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season was centered around. Now everybody is in new roles. Farrell is no longer on the police force. He accepted Vince Vaughn's job as a collector, enforcer, consultant, whatever. And Rachel McAdams, who's a very aggressive female, obviously police officer, she's in like the evidence cage or small crime or something, but she's off the street. And Kitch is no longer on a motorcycle, which is what he really enjoyed. but now he's been elevated to a detective for his display. He's a former soldier in the